Good evening, you're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Joanna Ho. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. The regional trade bloc Apec meets in Bangkok with leaders outlining their visions. Locally, journalist Bao Choi gets the green light to appeal to the city's highest court. And lawmakers pass a motion of thanks for the policy address, with comments on education and COVID. President Xi Jinping says China will consider hosting another Belt and Road Forum next year. This came as the members of a regional economic bloc gathered in Bangkok. Chloe Fong reports.
Hot on the heels of the G20 summit in Bali, the movers and shakers in the 21-member Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or Apec, assembled in Bangkok. The gathering in the Thai capital was the last in a series of back-to-back Asian summits that began in Phnom Penh. This morning, President Xi Jinping was welcomed by Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. Speaking on his first visit to Thailand since the pandemic, Xi said members of the Asia-Pacific family must look after one another, just like passengers in the same boat. He called for international justice and integrity with mutual respect and cooperation. Xi announced that China will consider hosting the third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation next year, after a 3-year gap. Thailand and the Mekong River are integral to the Belt and Road Initiative, which is among Xi's most significant infrastructure investment projects. Chinese state media released a statement in which the president said the Asia-Pacific is no one's backyard and should not become an arena of a big power rivalry. This was then directed to U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, who has been trying to lure other Asian members of APEC into Washington's orbit. Host Thailand hopes the gathering will emphasize green industries and reshape the regional economy in the post-pandemic era. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Chief Executive John Lee is also in Bangkok, where he met the leaders of Indonesia and Singapore on his first overseas trip as Hong Kong's leader.
The relationship between Indonesia and Hong Kong, particularly in the ASEAN community, is strong. The annual trade amounted to $5 billion last year and is rising. And I'm very glad that the relationship between Indonesia has ever been going up.
Lee thanked Indonesian President Joko Widodo for supporting Hong Kong's bid to join the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is a free trade agreement comprising 15 economies. The chief executive, accompanied by Commerce Minister Elgenan Yao, also met Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. John Lee said Singapore is Hong Kong's biggest trading partner in Southeast Asia. Bilateral trade grew 30% year-on-year to reach $62 billion in 2021. He urged Singaporean businesses to partner Hong Kong to take advantage of the opportunities in the Greater Bay Area and the Belt and Road Initiative. Earlier this morning, Lee attended the APEC summit along with President Xi Jinping. Former RTHK journalist Bao Choi has been allowed to appeal to the city's highest court against her conviction for making false statements to access public data on vehicle registration.
I try to be very calm and also true to any consequences that I may have in the whole process. I didn't really have a lot of bothers or worries about the consequence, whether I will win or lose the case. I guess what I'm doing is just trying to continue to pursue justice, and I understand that I'm not doing that by myself.
Bao was found guilty and fined $6,000 last year. She accessed the government's vehicle registry while producing a documentary on the Yunlong mob attack in 2019. The Court of Appeal upheld her conviction earlier this month, but today High Court Judge Alex Lee allowed her to go to the Court of Final Appeal, citing a point of law of great and general importance. The Legislative Council has passed a motion of thanks for Chief Executive John Lee's maiden policy address. A total of 80 lawmakers made their voices heard during the three-day debate. Although the motion of thanks was passed without objections, many lawmakers made criticisms or suggestions on several issues such as youth and COVID policies. New People's Party Chairwoman Regina Yip said many youngsters had been misled by the chaos in 2019 to go against the law in China. She blamed the past education system, saying it had made many to become egocentric. Yip cited the conviction yesterday of two former Cathay Pacific flight attendants for breaching quarantine rules.
They put up excuses that sounded so selfish. They said they had to visit their father, they were depressed. They had no regard to the collective responsibility that one should have in a society.
Yip added that there were wrong explanations on the concept of critical thinking. She said the new senior secondary curriculum established in 2009 had cultivated a batch of youngsters who don't think deeply before judging and opposing things. Meanwhile, Election Committee lawmaker Doreen Kong continued to push the government to relax COVID rules. She said some of the measures are outdated and would hinder the city's development. In conclusion, Acting Chief Executive Eric Chan said he'll continue to tell good stories about Hong Kong to the world and rebut any unfounded accusations against the city. He also paid tribute to the councillors, saying they have played a key role in a new chapter for Hong Kong. 3 more people have been arrested in a hit-and-run case which left a 14-year-old student fighting for his life. One of them is a 28-year-old man who was found to have driven without a license and third-party insurance. He's also wanted for another traffic offense in July last year. His girlfriend and another man were detained too. They were suspected of perverting the course of justice by setting a vehicle on fire to obstruct police investigations. The 43-year-old car owner was arrested earlier and released on bail. Pang Lei Wai, the student who was knocked down on Castle Peak Road in Yunlong last week, was operated on twice and remains in intensive care in Tuen Mun Hospital. City trees are great assets in enhancing the urban environment while improving air quality. But without careful tree management, these city plants can turn into threats, especially during the typhoon season. Katrina Lau reports.
To better preserve old and valuable trees, the government established a register in 2004 to keep track of their condition. But that didn't prevent this giant Chinese banyan from collapsing when Typhoon Nalgae struck the city earlier this month. The century-old tree near Bangkok East Station was nowhere near the coast or high ground, prompting questions on how it could be uprooted so easily. But a renowned tree expert believes he has the answer.
Now, for a tree that is over 20 meters wide and 15 meters tall, you trap it in a tiny planter of that size, it definitely will not be able to anchor properly in the soil. And as a result, it becomes very precarious. It can collapse any time.
Back in September, a flame tree by the roadside of Perth Street in Ho Man Tin suddenly collapsed. The fallen trunk straddled 2 lanes of traffic, crushing a school bus and a private car. A subsequent inspection by authorities has found that at least 2 nearby trees were diagnosed with brown root rot disease and were at risk of collapse. Separately last month, a Tai Po villager was killed by a falling tree branch, which he tried to remove. It was later revealed the man took matters into his own hands after calls for assistance to authorities went unanswered. In response, Development Chief Bernadette Lin has set up a special committee to review relevant guidelines. Jim said the spate of incidents point to a disjointed and deficient tree management system in Hong Kong. He also rejected arguments that trees cannot grow healthily under a dense urban environment, citing examples in Singapore and Tokyo.
Even on a narrow pavement, you don't need to confine the so-called rootable soil within a 1 meter by 1 meter conventional tree pit. You can provide a soil corridor, a continuous corridor of soil, so that adjacent trees can share the same soil volume. And then the other way is to select trees that will not reach a very large mature size.
He urged officials to better understand tree science before formulating management policies. Katrina Lau, HKIBC.
North Korea has tested an intercontinental ballistic missile that can reach the United States. The launch was the latest in a series of recent tests by Pyongyang and triggered swift condemnation from its neighbors and the United States. The missile fired today plunged into the sea about 200 kilometers west of the Japanese island of Hokkaido, but experts say it can travel 15,000 kilometers. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, who was in Bangkok for an Apec meeting, joined regional allies South Korea and Japan to denounce North Korea. At least 21 people, including 10 children, have been killed in a fire in a Palestinian refugee camp in the Gaza Strip. The blaze broke out on the top floor of a 3-story building in a crowded Jabalia camp. Officials say no one in the house survived the blaze. A gas leak was blamed for the fire. A family was said to be celebrating the return of a relative from abroad when disaster struck. Hong Kong's top cryptocurrency retail operator has stopped trading following the collapse of the FTX exchange. Genesis Bloc is closing down its over-the-counter trading portal in 3 weeks. The company has asked customers to withdraw their funds, adding that it will not accept new clients. Sources say Genesis Bloc cut its ties with FTX earlier this month. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 53 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $4.20, Alibaba up $1.70. Kuaishou up 70 cents, JD.com up $7.60. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euros at 8.11, pounds at 9.32, and Australian dollar at 5.25. Over to the UK market, FTSE 100 is up 68 points. Finally, some light relief. The Hong Kong Toilet Association says the best place to answer the call of nature is a facility on the peak. They got to the bottom of the issue after rating over 400 toilets across town based on factors such as comfort, accessibility, safety, and hygiene. The Peak Tower public toilet was found to be user-friendly and very hygienic. It is also equipped with facilities suitable for children. The announcement of Hong Kong's best was made on the eve of World Toilet Day. On to the weather now. It will be cloudy with a few rain patches. Temperatures will range between 23 and 27 degrees. Similar conditions in the next couple of days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Joanna Ho. Good night.